I shouldn't begin an interaction during an exam.
Right.
Doing the wrong thing. That's the dichotomy that I'm stuck in.
This is Larry Nassar, a renowned Olympic doctor whose life is about to take a drastic turn because of a young gymnast who bravely came forward to report the evil acts that he had committed.
And he had us all fooled. But in late March of 2014, I found out that man's true identity. Larry Nassar was no hero.
Little did anyone know at the time that her voice was just the beginning, a spark that would unravel a story far more heartbreaking and devastating than anyone could have ever imagined.
Governing body for American gymnastics is accused of routinely protecting coaches who were accused of sexually abusing young athletes.
Prior to this shocking revelation, reports resurfaced of several Olympic medics and doctors being involved in heinous sexual assault and harassment scandals, especially among the group USA Gymnastics, which Nassar was a part of. Obviously, most of these accusations were swept under the rug until a grave injury brought 53-year-old Larry Gerard Nassar out to the limelight. Nassar was the USA Gymnastics women's national team doctor for 29 years, earning acclaim, countless honors, and induction into Michigan State University's Hall of Fame. He was loved and sorted out by all, and was a very prominent member of the community.
You have to protect your athletes. You have to let them know that we care. You have to not let them know, but let them feel it. Let them understand it. Let them breathe it.
However, as the years passed, a darker truth began to unfold. The man who was loved by so many may not be who they thought he was.
He's risen to his place of prominence, and honestly, part of what grieves me so much is that he has everything he needs to be an incredible leader. He has the personality, he has the skill, he has the knowledge, and he's using that to prey on people. What a waste.
That would be the first time Larry Nassar would come into the picture of what would become one of the largest and most devastating sexual abuse scandals in sports history that spanned over 2 decades and affected hundreds of athletes.
New reaction tonight to allegations made against the former team doctor for Indy-based USA Gymnastics. 2 gymnasts have accused Dr. Larry Nassar of sexually abusing them during treatment.
What really blew this story wide open was when former USA gymnasts Jessica Howard and Jamie Dansker reached out to news outlets with similar allegations.
He started massaging me, and he had asked me not to wear any underwear. And then he just continued to go into more and more intimate places.
The sudden accusations against Larry shocked investigators and left them wondering just how many more could have been affected.
I remember thinking something was off, but I didn't feel like I was able to say anything because he was, this very high-profile doctor, and I was very lucky to be at the ranch working with him.
Did any of the other girls in your cabin talk to you about Dr. Nassar?
Yes. The girls would say, yeah, he touches you funny.
What no one knew at the time was how far Nassar might have used his position to exploit and sexually assault young athletes under the guise of groundbreaking medical treatments.
He would put his fingers inside of me, move my leg around. He would tell me I was going to feel a pop, and that would put my hips back and help my back pain.
How old were you then when he first did that procedure?
I was either 13 or 14.
The earliest report of his inappropriate actions was in 1998 when Larry began sexually abusing the 6-year-old daughter of a family, Kyle Stevens. But authorities failed to take action.
It was during this time, I estimate I was approximately 6 years old, that Larry Nassar began to sexually abuse me. He first exposed his penis to me in a dark boiler room in the basement of his home. He told me, if you ever want to see it, all you have to do is ask. He used his power as an adult to manipulate me. Over a 6-year period, he progressed from exposure to masturbating in front of me while playing hide-and-go-seek, rubbing his bare penis on my bare feet, and penetrating my vagina with his fingers.
His so-called treatments continued for years until March 24th, 2014, when 24-year-old gymnast Amanda Tomashow saw Larry for medical treatment for her hip pain. After the treatment, Amanda immediately reported Larry to Michigan State University and came forward with similar accusations.
Larry Nassar was no hero. He was a villain. At the end of a long and tiring appointment, that man sent his resident out of the room and then stuck his hand up my shirt and down my pants. He sexually assaulted me in spite of my protests and would not let me leave until I agreed to come back for a follow-up assault. It was terrifying and disgusting, and I spent days in shock from the violation I had experienced at his hands.
With this, the MSU conducted an internal investigation and eventually invited Larry for an interview. The authorities needed to understand why these reports kept surfacing, but nothing could have prepared them for the encounter they were about to have.
So basically what happens is that it sounds like there was a complaint made over at MSU Sports Medicine,
Right.
which triggers some mandatory reporting protocols. And so what I also do is I ask Office for Inclusion to kind of hold off, so to speak, because I like to put any type of police investigation in front of an administrative investigation. But obviously you probably feel the other is more important because it's affecting your employment.
Everything. Well, it's affecting her. That's my,
Right.
it's like I want to make sure that this gets resolved so that there's better understanding. Okay, that to me, everything else is irrelevant. It's really, I feel like horrid that she would feel that way, and that's why I'm like, I gotta get some resolution so
Right.
that I know that I'm not allowed to talk to her and everything. But it's good to talk. It's good to talk.
In the first few minutes of the interview, Larry appeared as his victims described him at first: personable and friendly.
So basically what I'd like to start is what you already know. So why don't we start with that, because it sounds like there's been some conversations that have already taken place. So I'd like to know what you know.
What I was told was that, the patient was concerned that I was inappropriately touching her and didn't understand why. You know,
Okay.
He was, touching me in my private areas, and she didn't understand why. And those are two things that confuse me, because I do this on a regular basis. This is a treatment that I lecture on. I lecture on not only here at Michigan State to the fellows and residents and medical students, but to national organizations.
However, what was surprising was that instead of taking the blame and apologizing for what he did, he tried to justify his actions.
I'm the type of doctor that spends, believe it or not, 30 minutes is the quickest appointment that you're going to have with me.
Okay.
It's 30 to 60 minutes, okay? Because I do a lot of hands-on and I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of talking, okay? So, in her situation, that's why I'm beating myself up. I'm like, where did I go wrong? How did I not know that she was uncomfortable? That's the bizarre thing to me. Okay. That's why I'm like, what signs was I missing? Why? I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay.
And that's why I'm like, what? Am I blind? Am I deaf? Didn't I hear or see anything? And she felt better. My understanding was when she was done that, because when I'm working on people, it's like, okay, how's it feel now? Number one, number two, what feels better? You know what I mean? And the pain was going away. She was getting better. And so if I'm resolving a problem and in constant communication with the patient talking, I don't get why she just didn't come out and say something.
Placing the blame on Amanda is a classic predatory move, and in a bizarre attempt to defend himself, Larry presented video clips he produced, hoping to demonstrate that his methods were legitimate.
Okay, the way that I first started working in this area was a gymnast had a hamstring problem and said they weren't getting better, same type of situation, and she was guiding me. And she was like taking my hand, and I'm right in her vaginal area, and she said, that's it. And all of a sudden, with my hand there, her range of motion doubled. I'm like, what the frick did I just do? And so I did all this research, and that's how I became known for this. I just was waiting since Friday when I heard that it did go forward to have this conversation, because I don't want her to mentally be going through what someone would be going through when they think that they've been sexually violated, okay? That's the problem that I'm facing, is that it's a dichotomy for me. It's like, I'm the person that usually puts the arm around them, not the one who's doing the wrong thing. That's the dichotomy that I'm stuck.
Larry clearly believed this was only a misinterpretation of his procedures, But Amanda's allegations went far beyond just that.
She says in the first video that you show me where she's flat on her stomach, and then what she says again, just like you're showing me and you're explaining to me, is that your hand had went in between her butt cheeks,
right,
and then she said the head went more towards her vagina and the vagina hole.
Well, not.
That's the way she's explaining it to me. So, and again, I'm not using medical terms, I'm using her terms, right?
That's okay.
So what she says that your fingers went by her vagina hole, and that she felt again that was a massaging nature, and that she felt that had went on for too long, and that you hadn't explained it to her prior to you doing it, so it was unexpected to her that she didn't know that was coming, and then when you were doing it, that she felt like it was not.
Was I talking to her during the time though, like I normally
do?
So
she says, yes again, that how does this feel? Does this feel better?
Right.
And she says that initially she says, yes, it does feel better, so you continue.
Right.
And then she says that at some point that she says that she felt that it was hurting, so she says, hey, that hurts, can you stop? And then you said you stopped at that time again.
Okay. That's what I was saying. It's an interaction, and I don't know how to say this, but that would be appropriate. It's like, you're working on them, and you're trying to and trying to do the work. You need that feedback from the patient. And I'm getting the feedback, and I'm responsive to the feedback.
Larry insistently refused to explain why those particular movements were involved in the procedure, but it was as if he had a well-crafted answer for every question.
For almost, I'll even go as far as like 3/4 of the examination time.
Right.
So I obviously want to talk to that resident to find out, hey, what did you observe during the 3/4 of the time that you're in the room? When did you leave the room?
Right.
And how did you come about leaving the room? Things like that.
Right. I would have been to have seen another patient.
Okay.
So unless it was the end of the day and they had to leave, but that's rare.
Okay.
They would have been to see the next patient.
Okay.
Despite the accusations, Larry was cleared of any wrongdoing and was only told to follow normal medical procedures. He was later reinstated and allowed to resume treating patients, but he didn't seem to have learned his lesson and would go on to do the unthinkable to several other women and girls. However, it wasn't long before his past would eventually catch up with him in the form of other previous victims.
I had a lot of pain in my wrists and in my back. I have a couple vertebrae that don't bend, and so that put a lot of extra pressure on my wrists and on my back just because of that dynamic, and it got to a point where it was just very chronically painful, very difficult to do anything, difficult to sleep, very difficult, of course, to practice, to lift anything. There were several gymnasts at my gym who had gone up to see Nassar, and their parents recommended that we head up there, so we did. He suggested that he could do myofascial release and sports massage to help with those dynamics. And I'd had myofascial release done before by a physical therapist, so I consented. But as he was doing that, he also began to massage internally as well. My mom was actually in the room at the time, and he would just position me and position himself so that she couldn't see what he was doing.
On August 29, 2016, Rachel Denhollander filed a criminal complaint with Michigan State University Police, accusing Larry Nassar of misconduct during treatments she received as a 15-year-old gymnast in 2000. But this time, her experience was even more harrowing.
And nothing was off limits for him. He never wore gloves. Never. It's very difficult to come forward against somebody who's as prominent as he is. And so it's very possible USAG didn't know. And if they truly didn't know, hands clean, then no, I don't hold them responsible. If they did with him what they did with those other coaches, I absolutely do.
Immediately, another investigation was launched, and Larry was once again brought in for questioning. But at that point, Larry had no idea who or what came forward about him.
Has there been another complaint? I'm just confused right now.
Well, we're kind of seeing what things have changed, what practices.
Okay, yeah. So I'm trying to do things where the difficulty is with the hands-on is I'm trying very hard to do things where I'm not being nearly as invasive, but it compromises things. Mm-hmm. So I am trying to modify that and having students there and having family members there, and I document in the chart.
Have you had any instances where there hasn't been anyone in the room for an exam? since that time?
There'd be some on occasion, of course. You know what I mean? That just is the way that with medicine is now. It's difficult. You know what I mean? So yes, that has happened.
And what circumstances cause that to happen?
The patient is an adult, you know, like she was too. But again, when I'm doing that, I'm trying not to do those techniques. You know what I mean? So, but I'm trying to, you know, like really trying to explain things. And I haven't had any complaints.
Just like in the previous interview, Larry acted friendly, not knowing how much trouble he was in. But without wasting time, the investigator quickly engaged Larry without giving him the full details as to why he had been called in.
So how would a patient be laying to get that treatment?
Prone, and then they're lay prone, you know, and then you're doing that. And then I can do it seated. I talk about doing seated. I can do it standing. I can do it supine. So, yeah, you can do, but
Would they be on their side?
On their side?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it on the side, too. I mean, like I show them in all the different directions, but it's rarely on the side. It's more, if I'm doing something on the side, that's more for the SI joint. That's the SI joint.
What's the SI joint?
Sacroiliac.
Okay.
Right here. You know, so that's where I might be like lifting. You actually sometimes like lift the hemipelvis.
Okay. And so where on their body would you touch the body?
Here would be, if your hands are like this, you know what I mean? You could be actually holding that, like this would be up towards the back and this would be up towards the pubic symphysis. And you could be like a U shape and you can lift and shift.
Would this ever involve like digital anal penetration?
Only if we're doing a coccyx, you know, problem. You know what I mean? So if there's a fractured coccyx or a, you know, a coccyx disorder too, you know, so that you can come perianal because it comes up, you know, you have that the pelvic floor attachments, but you can come to the pubic symphysis and also towards the coccyx. You know what I mean? So it's your lift, I call it the lift and shift.
Larry's attempts at once again justifying vaginal penetration as a normal medical procedure were factually incorrect, as it was something that has never been recognized or documented as normal in any medical guidelines.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that we did have another complaint.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a patient from a while ago.
Okay.
And she does describe some things that sound to me like they're out of the norm from your typical treatment.
Okay.
This would have been in...
Wow, okay.
And she was receiving some of that type of treatment, but then there were also some other ways that she was touched that she could be on the treatment.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking about anal penetration.
Only if there'd been coccyx, and I would have, and it would have been, I mean, like, because you can push hard. There's a lot of room down there, but I wouldn't have gone intra-rectal. You know what I mean? Like, unless I was purposefully treating the coccyx itself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What would you use to do that? Like, what digit or what part of your hand would you use?
Well, normally I'm using my thumbs, you know, as I'm coming up this way. You know what I mean? Then if I actually have to fix a coccyx, then I'm going to be using my finger inside and my thumb on the outside.
Okay.
You know, to
do you wear
manipulate the
gloves when you do
coccyx.
this?
If I'm going to go intra, yes.
Do you ever get aroused during these exams?
Do I get aroused during the exam?
Yeah, like do you ever get an erection?
Obviously you don't, you know what I mean? So...
is there a reason that you would during an exam?
I shouldn't be getting an erection during an exam.
Right. Okay. Well, this is why I'm talking to you about this, because this young girl and her mother both observed this on more than one occasion during treatment.
That I would get aroused during an exam?
Visibly an erect penis. Not exposed, but through your clothes.
I can't explain that.
At this point, it was clear that Larry was starting to fall apart. The more he was questioned about his so-called procedures, the more nervous he got.
And I've never had anyone, you know, what's confusing to me about is why wasn't there anything said back when I was treating them if they felt that uncomfortable? You know what I mean? It's like if I'm talking to the patient...
Okay, put yourself being a teenage girl.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Most people that are sexually assaulted are very uncomfortable. They don't know what to say.
A complete deja vu from the previous interview, Larry was no more successful than his last attempts at innocence.
During these visits, these treatments where you're dealing with young to old teenage girls who are very physically fit, very attractive, that you don't get aroused when you're touching. I mean, you're essentially touching their genitalia, you're touching their breasts and certain treatments.
I'm not purposely trying to get arousal from doing any treatment. I mean, come on. I'm not purposely trying to gain some type of sexual gratification out of doing that. That's not what I'm doing. Okay, if there was arousal, it would be because of whatever, I don't know, but I'm not trying to,
I don't know. I don't know.
When you're a guy, sometimes you get an erection, you know what I mean, but I don't, that's
you get an erection when you're aroused.
But you know what I mean, like I'm just saying that, I'm not trying to, how do you say this? And if I had an erection, I don't understand why I would have an erection from doing the treatment, you know what I mean, from what I'm doing, okay? And that's rather embarrassing, you know what I mean? It would be rather embarrassing, okay? I mean, to have that happen, okay? So it's just like, that's not appropriate, okay? And that is just not professional, you know what I mean? I don't know how else to explain it, but that's...
I realize that I don't have any. I'm going to go grab one and give you a moment to think and see if you have any other questions for me.
Yeah, I want to know what's going to happen, you know what I mean? Like I'm very...
I think similar to last time, obviously the university has to be notified. I have no control over that.
Right.
So I'm sure there will be conversations with your dean or whoever, however that looks. I'm sure you're familiar with that process. We don't get super involved in those processes, but and then I will continue to investigate. There will be other witnesses to talk to, things like that. And so, like last time, there will be an investigation.
Right.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go grab a card. Just so that you can have my information. I'll be right back.
Okay.
After the interview, Larry was relieved of his duties at MSU, but would still deny all the allegations against him, claiming that he had never used any procedure involving penetration. However, Rachel's accusation marked a significant turning point in the case as it gained widespread media attention and encouraged other survivors to come forward, including the captain of the 2012 and 2016 U.S. Women's Olympic Gymnastics teams, Alexandra Reisman.
I was in denial. I was like, I don't even know what to think. You don't want to let yourself believe, I am a victim of sexual abuse. Like, it's really not an easy thing to like. I was just really innocent. I didn't really know. You don't think that of someone, so I trusted him.
You thought it was medical treatment.
I didn't know anything differently. We were told he's the best doctor. He's the United States Olympic doctor and the USA Gymnastics doctor, and we were very lucky.
Ali described how Larry had first treated her in 2009 and had abused her when she was just 15 years old. At the time, she and other athletes did not realize that Larry gained their trust through predatory grooming to build an emotional bond with the athletes.
He would always bring me, desserts or gifts. He would buy me little things. So I really thought he was a nice person. I really thought he was looking out for me. That's why I want to do this interview. That's why I want to talk about it. I want people to know, just because someone is nice to you and just because everyone is saying they're the best person, it does not make it okay for them to ever make you uncomfortable.
In the first key test in London, the team finals, Alexandra's performance on the floor clinched gold for the U.S., their first gold ever on foreign soil. It was a picture postcard moment that only told part of the story. One of the women standing next to Reisman, her teammate, Michaela Maroney, also described how Larry had sexually abused her before the team's victory and continued for about 7 years.
He told me that he was gonna do like a checkup on me, and that was the first day that I was abused.
The Olympic gold medalist also filed a lawsuit against Larry, accusing him of using his position of trust to gain access and violate her dozens of times. He would do so all over the world when he would travel with the team for gymnastics competitions and perform genital examinations without gloves, a chaperone, or any form of lubricant from when she was 13 years old until she left the sport in 2016. Worst of all, Nassar tried to cover himself up through his own victims.
He said that nobody would understand this and the sacrifice that it takes to get to the Olympics, so you can't tell people this. And he didn't say it in a way that was like mean or anything like that. I actually was like, that makes sense. I don't want to tell anybody about this. And I didn't believe that they would understand.
Did you think he was letting you in on some Olympic secret?
That's what it felt like.
After that, you saw Dr. Nassar again?
Yeah.
And did he molest you again?
Every time I saw him, yeah.
Every time?
Yes.
How many times might that be?
Hundreds.
Michaela subsequently filed a lawsuit against Michigan State University, the United States Olympic Committee, and USA Gymnastics. But with the mounting reports against Larry, Michigan State University fired him from his position as an associate professor in the College of Osteopathic Medicine. Eventually, Nassar was arrested and also indicted on federal child pornography charges, where officials claim Larry had possessed child pornography between 2003 and 2016, and his years of twisted acts even reached the most decorated gymnast of all time, Simone Biles.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee knew that I was abused by their official team doctor long before I was ever made aware of their knowledge. In May of 2015, Rhonda Fayen, the former head of USA Gymnastics women's program, was told by my friend and teammate, Maggie Nichols, that she suspected I, too, was a victim. I didn't understand the magnitude of what all was happening until the Indianapolis Star published its article in the fall of 2016, entitled, Former USA Gymnastics Doctor Accused of Abuse.
In the following years, 4 elite American gymnasts, Simone Biles, Michaela Maroney, Maggie Nichols, and Ailey Raisman, testified before the U.S. Senate about the mishandling by FBI agents of abuse allegations brought against Larry and how the agents made false statements regarding their reports and misinformation about the botched investigation.
My Olympic dreams ended in the summer of 2015 when my coach and I reported Larry Nassar's abuse to USAG leadership. After I reported my abuse to USA Gymnastics, my family and I were told by their former president, Steve Penny, to keep quiet and not say anything that could hurt the FBI investigation. We now know there was no real FBI investigation occurring.
Over time, more than 265 women and girls shared their experiences of being abused by Larry, which prompted multiple charges to be filed against him. During Larry's sentencing, Randall Margraves, the father of 3 daughters who were sexually assaulted by Larry, appeared in court to confront him.
Distraught father, have a chance to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
You son of
In a courtroom, we don't use profanity, but if you have some words that you would like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to say that.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
The distraught father wanted to give Larry a piece of his mind, but no one could have expected what he did next.
Would you do that?
That is not how
yes
our...
Or no?
No, sir, I can't.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system...
Well, I'm going to have to get
Margraves wasn't the real offender in this court, though, because a flood of testimonies led to Larry Nassar being sentenced to 60 years in federal prison for child pornography charges in December 2017.
I swore to uphold the Constitution and the law, and I am well trained. I know exactly what to do. And at this time, I'm going to do it. And I want you to know, as much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you. Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again.
During his sentencing hearings for sexual assault in January 2018, more than 150 victims gave powerful impact statements.
And when I was 14 years old, I tore my hamstring in my right leg. This was when he started performing the procedure that we are all now familiar with.
The next visit was for my shoulder, which I then found out my hips were out of alignment, which then made my spine and my pelvic bone out of alignment as well. And this is when Larry decided that it was medically acceptable to violate a 16-year-old girl.
He put my picture up on his wall with the Olympians. I thought I mattered to Larry.
You had me so wrapped around your finger, and I still trusted you so much. Even when I was a sophomore in college, and you were the only person I called to help me make the decision to end my gymnastics career.
Larry Nassar did not arise in isolation. Rather, we saw the worst sexual assault scandal in history unfold because a predator was left in power for decades. Despite warning signs, despite red flags, despite direct reports of assault.
Rachel's testimony was particularly moving as she confronted Larry directly in court and described the immense physical and emotional harm he had inflicted on her all these years.
No words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred.
Did you take that apology to heart? Was it sincere?
Absolutely not.
Larry later pleaded guilty to sexual assault, and his sentencing would mark a moment of triumph and celebration.
Are you guilty, sir?
I accept my plea.
Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
However, in an unexpected turn of events, in July 2023, Larry Nassar would get his penance in his own federal prison cell in Florida.
Sunday specifically, and it was some sort of altercation that quickly escalated and turned violent, and Larry Nassar was stabbed multiple times, twice in the neck, twice in the back, 6 times in the chest, and also suffered a lung collapse.
Although violence should never be condoned, it is without a doubt that he is now facing the consequences of the years of abuse he had inflicted on his patients.